Good afternoon. I'm back and I'm ready to actually start to do some cooking. Hope you're ready to go with me because something sweet is about to happen. Before I actually start the recipe I'd like to work on with you today, I'd like to show you something I also enjoy doing, but it's already baked and I thought you might like to see. I have some sourdough starters and I really enjoy baking some very nice sourdough bread. I worked on it all day yesterday and it stayed in the refrigerator to rest all night. And I baked it up this morning and it looks delicious. Sliced with butter, all crunchy with a nice bowl of soup. For those of you who live in colder climates, having this with a nice bowl of soup on a cold day is one of my favorite things. Here in Florida, we just have to turn the air conditioner down a little bit and pretend it's cold outside because we don't get that cold weather, but it's still really, really good. We'll cook that together one day, but today I just wanted to show you the finished product. But today, we're going to make one of my favorite things to make, and something I've been making since I was a little girl, peanut butter fudge. I cooked it with my grandmothers and with my mother. I will say my mother was not that big a fan of us getting in the kitchen and messing things up. She was pretty picky about her kitchen, but we learned. In fact, we've laughed and said our husband said the only things we knew how to make when we got married were fudge and tossed salad. So we had to do some learning pretty quick after we got married and moved away from home. But today we're going to make peanut butter fudge from scratch. So are you ready? We're going to start. Okay, are we ready? I've got everything laid out that we're going to need, and in the description box under this video, I will give you the recipe. I will tell you about the equipment that I use and things I've learned from many years of doing this, and we'll start from there. You will first need a heavy bottom pan. It can't be thin aluminum. It needs to have a nice heavy bottom. Otherwise, it'll stick. You can tell from looking inside this one, it's made a lot of fudge. I take fudge to markets and I sell it, and so I make a lot of fudge. So you'll need a nice heavy bottom pan. You will also need, if you're like me, you'll need a candy thermometer, and there's so many different ones. The one I use is digital, and I like that better, but other people don't. They use the more traditional analog ones, and whichever one you'd like to use. And if you're proficient at the dropping it into the cold water to get to soft ball stage, go for it. I've never been able to count on that, so I use my handy candy thermometer. In fact, when I travel, I take it with me because one of the names I'm known by in the family is Aunt Fudge. So when I go to visit nieces and nephews, I make fudge and I take my candy thermometer with me. I also have a dedicated pan that I use to pour my fudge up in. It's a springform pan, and I'll put a link to this on Amazon. It's a springform square pan, and you can put it in there so when it sets, you can take the top of it off and it's easier to slice. I spray it just a little bit with a nonstick spray. I don't think you'd really have to, but just for insurance purposes, I always do because I certainly don't want to risk it sticking. So I always do that. Well, let's see if I can get it back together now that I've taken it apart. Well, we'll worry about that in a minute. I make a double batch because when I make it, I want to have a lot. So I'll tell you the proportions that I use, and then if you'd like to cut that in half, you certainly can. But it goes pretty fast, so you might want to go ahead and make a double batch when you start. I've already measured out my 4 cups of plain white granulated sugar, and I'll pour those into the pot. Put that in first, and then I will use 1 cup of whole milk. I've also used half and half, and it just makes it richer. You can use skim milk or 2%, but I really prefer whole. So I put that in next. I use a wooden spoon to stir it so that it doesn't have any metal. I don't want any metal or anything, so I always use a wooden spoon, and I mix that together. I will use a heaping cup of peanut butter, but that won't go in till the end. And I love this measuring cup because it slides up and down. When I get ready to put this peanut butter in, I can just push it up, and it's not, I don't have to scrape it out. So I will put it to the side, and we'll use it later. I will also use a teaspoon or so, probably a little more, of vanilla. And that's another thing we'll talk about another day. I brew my own with vanilla beans. And so I have this. I always have some vanilla brewing. So I have this and I use my own. And 2 sticks of butter. Please don't use margarine. Use butter. I use salted. If you want to use unsalted, that's fine. I would add a pinch of salt to the fudge as you're cooking it if you use unsalted butter. So we'll take this to the stove in just a second, and we will start to cook it. I cook it on a medium heat, and it has to come to a boil, and then it has to come to softball stage. Softball stage has a range of temperature somewhere between 234 and 240. In my experience, it needs to cook to 236. That always works for me. So I put my candy thermometer in when it starts to get hot and starts to boil. And then I cook it until it gets to 236. When it gets there, I then add the peanut butter and the vanilla, and I put it in the sink in just about a couple of inches of cold water, and I beat it until it's ready to pour up, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. So if you'll hang with me for just a minute, we're going to go to the stove, and I'll show you how we do it. All right, I'm at the stove now, and if you can see, I've got my butter and my sugar and my milk in here, and I'm about to turn on the eye. I have an electric stove. I usually put it to about medium and let it start to heat, and I stir it constantly. My daughter lives with me, and sometimes she stirs for me, but it has to be stirred constantly or that sugar will crystallize and it will be grainy, and you don't want that to happen. If you put this much time and effort into what you're doing, you want to have a good product at the end. So we're going to start this to cooking, let it heat. It's going to take a little while. So I'm going to let you go, and I'll come back when it starts to boil, and you can kind of see how it looks then. Okay, we're back, and the temperature is at 232, and you can see down in the pot and see how it's boiling. See, there it is. It's a nice syrupy mixture. And in just a few minutes, it'll be at 236, and then we'll start to add the other ingredients. Something makes me think about so many things in my years since growing up. It's a tradition in our family that whoever is the youngest one at the gathering gets to lick the fudge spoon. But now that it's just my daughter and me, it's harder to do that because neither one of us are very young. So we have to just kind of let it go. All right, so my syrup has gotten to its 236 degrees, and it's just bubbling away, and it's time for me to add the other ingredients. So I'm going to put in my peanut butter, and that's where this really nifty measuring cup comes in, so that you can just scrape it in there without having to scrape it out. That's really, really great. I got it at Amazon, as I get most of everything I own. So I will put a link that shows you, and then this is my vanilla, and maybe I should measure it since you're watching me. I never ever measure this. A teaspoon and a little extra vanilla goes in, and then I stir it until all of that dissolves together. So I wonder who's going to get to lick the fudge spoon today. Trying to cut back on sugar at this house, so I don't know that it's going to be one of us, but maybe it could be one of you guys. When you make your first fudge, remember the youngest person in the house gets to lick the fudge spoon. So you can see that this peanut butter is starting to melt, and it's starting to turn that peanut buttery color. It's still really runny, And that's why we set it in the sink of cold water, and it helps it start to cool and it starts to thicken. It looks very shiny in the pot right now. When we put it in the sink and we start to beat it, it'll start to lose some of that gloss. And I will tell you, when it gets ready to pour up, you have to be ready, because if you wait too long, it'll get hard and you can't get it out of the pan. Through the years of making fudge, I have had it turn into a brick so hard you felt like you needed a hammer to cut it up. And we've also had to eat it with a spoon a few times. It takes some practice to get it right. So be patient with yourself if you decide to try this and you've never done it before. And we're just about ready to go to the sink. It's all melted. The peanut butter has incorporated into the syrup. We've got the vanilla in there. I mean, you think it's 4 cups of sugar, 2 sticks of butter. This is pretty rich candy. So we're going to the sink. And we're starting to beat. And this is going to be a few minutes. So I'm going to let you go. And then when it starts to thicken, I'll bring you back. As you can see, it's gotten very, very thick and fudgy. And we're just about to pour it in the pan. If you want to watch. Okay, it's in the pan. Look at this. Look at this spoon. Doesn't that look delicious? And it is. It's very, very good. So we're going to leave it in the pan. It will take maybe half an hour for it to set. I don't put mine in the refrigerator. It doesn't mean you can't. And I have when I've really been in a hurry, but I would prefer that it sit at room temperature and set. So I'm going to let it set, and then I'll bring you back and show you how we take it out of the pan. I hope you will enjoy making this one day. Okay, our fudge is all set, and it's hardened nicely, and I'm going to let you see what it looks like as I take the springform pan off of it. So here it is, just like that. We'll take the springform pan off and slide that off of there. You can see we have quite the pan of fudge here. You'll need a fairly sharp knife to make nice clean cuts. And I usually cut 6 across and 6 down. It's according to how big you want your slices to be. So we'll cut it. Six rows across, and then we'll turn it and we'll make 6 the other way. Okay, and then I usually, since I take it to market and I take it places to sell it, I box it in little white fudge boxes with bows. But today we're just going to take some off the pan, still a little softer than I like, and put it on my plate. You see this beautiful plate? Another one of my most favorite things is Polish pottery, and I collect a lot of it. And this is a beautiful Polish pottery plate. Isn't it nice? So we're just going to take a few pieces off and put it on this plate, and then that will be all for today. I hope to see you again very soon, and we will be making other sweet treats. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it so much. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, and please leave me a comment so I know how you think I'm doing. I know this first video has been pretty choppy and up and down. I'm trying to learn, so be patient with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and thank you again for joining me on this journey. See you soon, and I hope that something sweet will happen to you soon.